Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for May 3rd, 2022. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to Zoom or our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let us know if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start today by recapping the weekly tittle from 2 weeks ago, which was called Bust a Myth. The assignment was to explore your attitudes and beliefs and try to deconstruct a decluttering myth that's keeping you stuck. We'd love to hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook. Was anyone able to demythologize a part of your decluttering process this week? That's a lot of D's.
I know, right?
Please let us know in the comments. I'd like to share a myth that I am working on right now. This one probably affects many of our work from home viewers and listeners, or maybe anyone with a very busy life. Here it is. Clearing my clutter is a low priority task.
Dun, dun, dun. Not a surprise.
Yeah, it's hard for me to prioritize a little bit of clutter that needs my attention when my email inbox is constantly blowing up and my phone is ringing and deadlines for client projects are looming. But as I reflected on the tittle from 2 weeks ago, it occurred to me that the particular small stack I'm thinking about may not be urgent, but it's definitely important because it's in my line of sight while I'm trying to tackle the urgent and important stuff. And I know that to my partner, it's pure visual noise. So in terms of Stephen Covey's urgent important matrix, which we've talked about before, this task falls solidly in quadrant 2, which means that everyone in my household would benefit from my prioritizing this tiny chore. So I've added it to my to-do list in a spot appropriate to its importance. And I have made a promise not to stack any other tasks on top of it, literally and metaphorically.
We forget how clutter is visual chatter happening in our surroundings, don't we? It takes a part of our mind away from what we're doing, even if we don't quite realize it all the time. For some people, ignoring that chatter is easy, but for others, it takes a lot of effort to ignore that visual stimulus. Recognizing that the noise is bothering you or distracting you or busting your focus is a great insight. And moving the item up on the to-do list means you can attend to it and stop the visual distraction. That's going to pay you back in improved focus on the other things that are more important regarding running your business. Thanks for sharing, Ed. That's a good one. That's a very good one because people devalue the little small task and don't realize it's over there going, exactly.
Here's a really good one from Anya.
Hi,
My
Anya.
myth, I need to finish decluttering and organizing. Reality, both will never be finished. I may maintain.
Yeah, that's the better goal, right? Because as long as you're still living, you only get to the end when you die. Otherwise, you keep making and having to clean up stuff all the time. Like every time you use the kitchen, you got to clean it. So there is a point where you reach a volume that you're comfortable managing. And then the nonstop decluttering task is just maintaining it, putting things back when you use them, cycling things out that are too old and replacing them with something new, the old medicine, the old food, for instance, that kind of stuff. And so you've sort of achieved organizing nirvana when you are comfortable with all the things that are in your space and where they go, and you can then maintain them. And so the ongoing task forever is maintaining. That's a good insight. That's a good thing to figure out.
You're also previewing next week.
Oh,
Joyce shared the myth of I can't get started has been holding me back for weeks now.
I think that that's a lot of people deal with that. A lot of people face that the project is so big, I don't know where to start. I can't make myself start. There's some element I think of, if I start, then I'm going to be working on this task forever and ever and ever. Amen. And the truth is that if you don't get started, it's going to sit there forever and ever and ever. Amen. And so you do have to get started somewhere. And sometimes it's just like, I am finally going to commit to a plan of action and get in motion is the step that you don't want to do. It's like, oh, if I start decluttering, then I actually have to do it. I actually have to be doing this thing that I swear that I want to be able to do. and not everybody finds it as much fun as I do. And so I know that the idea of making yourself do something like scrub the toilet there's not anything super fun about scrubbing the toilet, but it sure does make your life better if the toilet is generally clean and healthy. And so
it's nice.
It's one of those things like, decluttering, it's a chore and it's ugly sometimes, and it's worth the effort. And so you just have to talk yourself into, maybe the process isn't going to be lovely, but I'm sure going to love the stuff at the end. And you won't be the first person that's had to keep breaking the task down into a smaller and smaller and smaller bite until it's small enough that you're willing to start doing it.
Marcia shared, my myth is to find the best place to get rid of something instead of letting everything or anything go to the landfill. Perfection, the enemy of getting something done.
Yes, it is.
A lot of people get stuck on that. This really needs to go to the perfect home or I won't be happy. Well, it needs to get out of your place. That's probably a higher priority.
And you're not happy now with the stuff still in the house. So, it's like, which way do you not want to be happy? I would prefer to be happy and not have it in my house than the other way around. And yeah, it does make disposal very time consuming when you have to find the exact right place for every object. It exponentially explodes that process of decluttering the house and getting rid of what you don't want. And I always tell people, when you have a big project ahead of you, you are looking for the bulk solution, the one place where you can take a lot of stuff, not the 100 places where you can take one of each of your stuff, because that is 2 trips instead of 100 trips that you have to take and arrange and meet up with and drop off and make happen. And it just makes the project so much bigger and longer. So while there may be some that are very important, like the Star Wars action figure collection, that you want to go to somebody who's very specifically into that, it might be worth a few of the things going to their exact right home. But it's certainly not worth that level of effort for every single thing in your house. There needs to be a few places where you can say, okay, I can generally take 90% of my house and go to Goodwill or Salvation Army or the local thrift store or the church refugee program or whatever makes you happy, that you feel like is going to use most of it. And recognizing that there's a waste in all processes. There's nothing that uses 100% of what you have. When you make food, you throw away stuff that doesn't get eaten. You throw out the pieces that you chop off and peel off and, trim off. There's waste in every process. And so acknowledging that there is some in the decluttering process too will make it easier for you to go to a few places and know that some of it will go to waste. And you're making the attempt to get it somewhere where a lot of it can be used. And that's certainly not happening in your house. It's not being used in your house. And so sending it on is a good idea. And anything to do that in a bulk process will make your life easier and make the decluttering project shorter.
Well, and if you've got larger, bulkier things where you're not particularly concerned with, it goes to a good home, or if your main concern is keeping it out of the landfill, put it out by the curb, because the universe will send along the perfect place for it to go. Someone will see it and want it. And then, if it sits there a week and no one takes it, well, then get it. You're going to have to get it to the landfill, take it to the dump, put it in your
when I
trash
would
bin, whatever. But
right, I would do the added piece of, because a lot of times the homeowners associations don't want you to do that. You get in trouble for that kind of stuff. But if you do it around the time when heavy trash is going to come anyway, then you get a little bit of a pass. And if you go mound it all at the curb and then take 1 or 2 pictures and go put it on Nextdoor and say, here's my address, here's where the stuff is, come and get it.
Help yourself.
It will disappear. Like you do that little advertising to the group and people will come over and take it away. And the last time I cleaned out the garage, I did that. I completely covered up the entire front curb of my house with stuff and then took 3 pictures and posted on Nextdoor. And in 12 hours, there was nothing left. It was gone. There was nothing for the junk people to pick up. And okay, I hope you enjoyed that. It's out of here. And it was gone. And you didn't have to carry it. Like all I had to do was get it to the curb. And then somebody else was in charge of hauling it off and driving it away. And all of that happened for free. I didn't have to spend any money on that. And so that is a good point.
Naomi mentioned, I have the opposite problem. And that I think is in response to what I said about my little stack of clutter. She said, doing low value decluttering and organizing instead of tackling more substantive work, including higher value and more important decluttering. Now, the first thing I'd say to that is, yes, it's a stalling tactic, but if it's stuff you were going to have to do anyway, good for you for getting something done, because something is better than nothing, right?
100%. It's all maintenance you have to do anyway. And that none of that effort is wasted effort. And you may consider that it's not the highest priority, or you may consider that you're stalling so you don't have to do the bigger, uglier task. And we totally get it. Nobody on this call is surprised by what you said. All right. Like not a big deal, not big news to anybody. And sometimes you just have to be doing what you can do in the moment. Maybe you don't have the energy for it right now, but if you are still doing things to move your project forward, even if it's the small little stuff in the corner, that's okay. And you might consider interspersing an hour of something bigger instead of trying to tackle the big substantive project. Don't assume that you have to do all that in one sitting. Like when you do little small organizing tasks, you go from start to finish, you get it complete. But when you step into the substantive stuff, like my garage, I didn't do that all in one day or one weekend. I did one weekend in January and one weekend in February and one weekend in March. And I went out there for 3 or 4 hours and I did another stage of it and, moved some stuff around, hauled some things off, made my trips to donation. And the weekend that we put everything to the curb, that was all we did that day, was go through and pull out all the stuff that needed to go to the curb. And so I didn't finish the garage in one weekend. I'm too old for that. I can't do all that work in one weekend. And so I did it in chunks. And so you may start a substantive project and do a part of it and just think of the big job has many steps, and you can do one of those steps at a time and walk away and come back another day and do another step and still be moving your project along. Maybe it just needs to be, you don't need to think of it as I got to work on the substantive stuff and get it from start to finish like I do everything else.
Okay, a couple more good comments on myths, and then we need to move on. M said, myth of the yard sale. I put the old vacuum cleaner in the big trash pickup today.
Yay. I see that one a lot. Like there's something about vacuum cleaners that really makes people uncomfortable throwing them away because they still look good, even though they don't, like all of the functioning of the vacuum is on the inside. When the motor dies, when the suction's bad, whatever is not working anymore. And yet it's still, the housing and everything still looks good. And somehow
it looks like it should work if someone just had the right magic touch.
Right. And so, I find that other people struggle with throw the vacuum cleaner away a lot. So yay. I appreciate and applaud the fact that you climbed that hurdle and out it went. So good job.
Last one, Faith says, myth, when I retire, I will use all the craft materials I have amassed, so I have to keep them. Myth busting, I am putting craft items in the donation box if not used in 12 months.
There you go. And the truth is, when you retire, you're not going to spend every waking minute doing crafting. You're going to do crafting and a whole bunch of other things too. And so deciding how much of your time and space is allocated to being creative and how much of it is hanging out with people and traveling and seeing your family will be something you have to figure out when you get there. And surprise, surprise, if you run out of a supply, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to go and get some more. There will be a Hobby Lobby somewhere nearby where you can go get some more stuff. So don't stress about it now.
Or better yet, go to your local, more expensive, but really nice people to talk to, craft store, art and craft store, and get yourself whatever it is that you can't live without next.
Right. You're showing your little pin.
Yeah. I went art supply shopping on Saturday. And
Ed's starting to accumulate drawing tools for all his drawing.
Only spent $30, which I thought was quite an accomplishment.
That's pretty good for a crafter, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to our main event.
Okay.
Graduation season is about to start, and parents everywhere will be scrambling to launch their graduates into college life, often with little cash and strict space limitations. But even if college isn't in the plans, your kids may need help establishing a space of their own. Today, Gayle is going to offer low-cost, space-saving suggestions for organizing starter apartments, dorm rooms, and other compact spaces.
As we've said, with graduation season comes many teams' first attempt to move in and set up a room from scratch. Often they don't think about it too hard and mom starts the planning instead. But what we're really talking about today is organizing small spaces to function as well as possible, given limited space and storage. Here are some givens about any first apartment or dorm room or big city, small square footage apartment. They don't come with much in the way of storage. They are usually as bare bones as possible. And that means you're going to add all the storage to the room. And that means you're going to bring it all in. The best way to do that is with a plan. So let's start with some organizing principles and applications for small spaces. I think the most important thing to do first is to take measurements of the space or request them from the college housing staff or the apartment manager, wherever you're going to be headed, whatever you're trying to accomplish. That is a big deal to know exactly how many feet of wall space you have, where the openings for the doors are, where the windows appear, that kind of stuff, to have some idea about what kind of actual floor space and wall space you have. Then you want to map out a drawing of the space based on those measurements, or you can do it in a space planning app now. There's all kinds of, designer applications, programs out there where you can create a floor plan inside of a program. But you can also just get out your ruler and a pencil and start making measurements that match the size of the apartment you're going to have. And then the first thing to measure is the furniture that you want to bring, because I think I have a really great sense of spatial relations, and I can look at that bed is not going to fit in that room. It's too big, or it's too crowded, or there's not going to be any space on the side of it. And other people don't have that same sense really. And so if you know that about yourself, if you know that you don't have really reliable spatial relations, then I would definitely measure the furniture that you're going to put in this space and see, because you can't put a bed that's a queen size bed into a little small apartment room and expect to be able to walk down the side of the bed on both sides, for instance. It's very important to recognize that in small apartments and dorm rooms, particularly any kind of a small apartment, it's going to be really tight. And there's a reason why they make apartment size furniture, because the space is too small for the stuff that's in your parents' house. That's what I'm saying. Put your furniture in your map, see what spaces are left. So if you add the bed and any kind of a piece of furniture besides the bed into the bedroom, and you add a couch, and you've got maybe an end table or a coffee table in there, maybe you have a little dining table to sit at, some place where you can sit down and have food. You may be out of room after you do that. So it's very important to know what pieces of furniture fit and then what spaces are left where you might be able to insert some storage. You can't just buy a bunch of random storage containers and bring them and hope that they fit somewhere. I mean, you can, but you're going to be sad if you do that. So it's better for you to map out the apartment, put the furniture in it, and see what's left. And then you can plan for the open spaces that are left over. That will save you some time and money for sure. You don't want to move what does not fit. And this is like the ultimate moving time. When you go to a dorm, you assume that it's all going to fit in the car. Usually the bed's already there, the desks are built in, and so you're not taking a lot of furniture, you're really just taking storage. But I've watched some people pack for a dorm room, and they take the entire car is full of stuff that they're trying to get into this room. And so I think it's very important for you to understand the space is this big, the furniture takes up this much, and then I'm left with this much that is actually going to allow me to put something in it. So have some good idea about what will fit, and then don't take more than you need. Because I think ultimately, if you err on the side of caution and take less, if you suddenly decide that you have the exact right space to put this thing in, then you can either go and get one in your location, or you can ask mom to bring you the one that's missing. But I think it's likely that you're going to overstock instead of understock. So be very careful. A small apartment doesn't have a lot of room, and a dorm room has zero room, but a small apartment does not have a lot of room for you to have a bunch of excess things while you try to figure it out. So less is more in this situation all the time. Make sure that the storage solutions and the household items serve multiple purposes whenever possible. So anything that will fit in your space should have some storage or space saving component to it. And I'm thinking the household items with multiple purposes, in particular in the kitchen. You do not want to outfit your kitchen as if it's a gourmet kitchen. You want the kitchen to have options and things that serve more than one purpose, so that the little bitty cabinet space you have in your kitchen, which is going to shock you with how little it is, will be able to absorb the things that you need, and you'll be able to still make food in there. Consider some bed alternatives. Futons, day beds. These are things that mean that the bed doubles as a couch. That at least gives you a place to sleep, and then you can make the bed and put the cushions back up and have some place to sit down. Murphy beds mean that the bed disappears when it's not in use, and that frees up floor space. Clearly, these don't apply to a dorm room, but it might be an option in a smaller apartment. A platform bed with drawers underneath is a great space saver, so you don't have to add a chest of drawers, because your platform bed with the drawers that pull out the sides becomes your chest of drawers. And so that leaves you with one less piece of furniture, and you can still have drawers to put the underwear and the pajamas and the shorts and all the stuff that you would normally put in a chest of drawers. So it leaves you some space around the bed, and it gives you storage as well, all built in together. It's a good one.
Before we move off of that, Clover, who's with us on Facebook, asked where to shop for apartment size furniture. I know one that comes right to mind for me is IKEA. If you're fortunate enough to live in a place with an IKEA nearby, they have a lot of small space solutions for furniture.
And they definitely focus on that, and they create displays in the stores that are about, what to do in 200 square feet. And then they have all these options of things that will work in small spaces. So clearly they're trying to make sure that everybody can be comfortable in little bitty spaces. They must, everybody must function with little bitty spaces. From where IKEA comes from. Is that Finland, Sweden? I forget exactly.
Sweden. Yeah.
So they have lots of adaptive stuff, and lots of things that serve more than one purpose, lots of things that are designed to go up the wall, and lots of this converts to that. This can be, it can be a desk, and then it can be a table, and then it can be something else. There's lots of things going on there like that. So that's a good place to start. It's also, they have a huge catalog, they have a big website. And so even if you don't buy an IKEA solution, the IKEA website's a great way to start looking for ideas. Okay, so one of the ways that you can save furniture is a shelf on the wall next to the bed. Use that as a nightstand instead of actually having a nightstand next to the bed that takes up too much space. A lot of times we're conditioned to think we got to have a nightstand on two sides of the bed, and then the bed takes up the room, and then the nightstands, and you can barely fit it all in, or you can't, there's not even room to have one. So if you're erring on the side of, I want a bigger bed and in a smaller space, then you definitely have to lose furniture. And so creating a shelf on the wall instead of having a nightstand piece of furniture is an alternative. And some headboards come with little shelving pieces as part of the headboard. And so you might consider that as well. That at least removes the end tables. If you're lucky enough in this small apartment to have space for a coffee table to go with your couch or your chairs or whatever you've got as seating, make sure that you pick one that has some kind of storage. Maybe it has a shelf at the bottom. So there's the coffee table and it has a shelf underneath, or it has a drawer underneath that pulls out, or the top folds up. Sometimes it's a box and the top folds up. It's hinged and folds up and there's storage underneath it. And so that's a perfect place to put blankets that you're using, or store the electronics when they're not in the way, or here's the pillows that I like to pull out when I want to sit on the floor, whatever. It's a great way to add some storage into a place that has a big footprint anyway. A coffee table takes up a lot of floor space. And so it really needs to include the ability to store something in that space that it's eating up by sitting there and taking up floor. And so if you're going to have a coffee table, make it hold some stuff. And think of that same way with your seating as well. There's lots of seating takes up floor space, and there's lots of it that will also provide storage. So you can think of a bench, maybe a bench that has a back, but the seat part is really a hinged box, and the lid comes up, and here's a box underneath that people can sit on, but that you can store things in, or an ottoman that would be at the end of a chair or a couch. That can be, sometimes the ottoman, the soft cushy thing, is the coffee table. And you can accomplish that by, here's the cushy thing to put your feet on, and there's a flat tray that sits on top of it to serve as the coffee table part, and the lid comes off and it can have storage underneath. So an ottoman is a great way to add some functionality and storage all at the same time. There's also little cubes that you can sit on that open them as well. So sometimes there'll be little cubes that have cushions on the top of them to function as a seat for one person. And those little cubes, actually the lid comes off and here's storage underneath it as well. I actually have a client that has a square coffee table, and in each corner of the coffee table is a little cube that has a soft cushioned lid on it. And so the little cubes go into the corner of the coffee table and they meet in the middle. So there's a flat surface, the cubes go underneath, and when you pull the cubes out, you can either sit on them or there's stuff to store, like you can store things in them. So it serves many purposes for that, and it all fits under the square that is the coffee table itself. That's a really good use of space. You want to optimize all of the use of vertical space. You want to go up the walls, especially in small apartments where they haven't worked really hard to create storage. There's not usually lots of cabinets, and so you're going to be using lots of vertical spaces. So, and this is true in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the bedroom. You want to be able to use things on the wall. So wall hooks, things that you can put into the wall to hang things, multi-hook racks, so things that hooks that hang over like a door frame, or you can hang a hook on the wall that has many little hooks on it. I actually have a bunch of necklaces, big necklaces hanging on what was clearly a decorative rack that probably has like 6 hooks on it. And I hang a bunch of necklaces on that on the wall. Floating shelves provide racking space. And so there's lots of little freestanding little shelves that they're sort of decorative things, but you can add shelves to the wall that are designed to just float. They don't have like brackets and things. They're designed to be nailed into the wall with, they have like internal wires and things to attach them to the wall. And they create good racking space, storage space for things that can come up off the counter and be on those shelves. Or if the space is narrow, like I said, a floating shelf next to the bed to be an end table instead of having a separate piece of furniture. They make a lot of tall, skinny tower-like furniture, like bookshelves that are tall and thin, and other kinds of storage like that. There's really narrow wire racks that have wheels that are designed to be in the laundry room, maybe between the washer and the dryer. There's CD towers, and there's little bookshelf things that go up tall and skinny instead of going out this direction. There's ladder style racks. There's a lot of lean up against the wall with little shelving things on them that give you a little bit of book storage, or if you want to have little tchotchkes sitting there,
or some of them have just rungs, but so you could drape quilts or blankets or
that kind of stuff.
Afghans.
Exactly, linens of some kind. An over the toilet shelving unit is a big one. It's not often that the toilet will have a cabinet over it, or usually the cabinet is narrow, because when you back up and sit down on the toilet, you don't want to be cracking your head against a cabinet. But if there's no narrow unit up there, you can add some an over the toilet unit that just stands in. It'll be, like I said, it'll be shallow on purpose so you don't kill yourself. But if not that, then you can also, that would be a good place to put racks, hooks, if you want to hang towels, you want to hang hand towels. Toilet paper is a whole nother thing. For some reason, these little shallow units that go over the toilet, people always think they want to put their toilet paper in there. And then, a package of 6 fills up the entire shelving unit. So it's probably not the best option, but it is a way to, over the toilet, provide you some wall space that can absorb a shallow cabinet or other kind of hooks. Don't forget about creating the vertical storage on counters. So on the bathroom counter, on the kitchen counter, any place where you have a counter and you tend to spread things out, don't forget that you can create shelving units that then create a step up. I mean, I'm thinking of wire ones. They make bamboo ones. There's all kinds of ways. Maybe you have an open cube that the opening faces towards you, and you can put things in and on top of the cube. You can double your space on all kinds of counter spaces if you create some vertical inserted shelving. Do that inside kitchen cabinets as well, bathroom cabinets. When you end up with, because the builder threw a cabinet up and they like made a big a big open box and threw it in some space where it seemed like a cabinet and a door would be a good idea. You can better optimize that space by inserting things that wire racks, stackable cubes, things like that, that will allow you to make better space of the cubic volume of the cabinet that they created for you. I'm thinking of, this is an old one for us, Ed, the spice stack in the kitchen, which is basically a little box that has drawers that pull out. And in each of those drawers holds the spices, right? And so instead of filling up an entire drawer with spices or having them spread out all over the counter, this creates a vertical stack of your spices. And so it's still easy to access them, but they don't take up so much flat surface in the kitchen. And in a small apartment kitchen, that counter space is like gold. And so you don't want to use up all of your vast 2 feet of counter space by covering it up with stuff. So anything that lets you stack and take some things up the wall will be helpful. Okay, let's talk about hidden spaces. Let's talk under the bed, behind the door, things like that. There are going to be some hidden spaces that you can take advantage of and use for storage. So under the bed, the obvious one under the bed is under the bed storage boxes, and they make not very tall, long and thin boxes that will fit under the bed. And so sometimes they have wheels on them to make them easy to go in and out. Sometimes you can put them down on top of a stiff piece of plastic and pull the piece of plastic back and forth to slide things in and out of the bed. You can also do this under a couch sometimes if there's space. Sometimes couches are high enough off the ground that you can slide something underneath them. That would be couches that have long skinny legs and a gap. And so you might want to consider storing some things under there as well with the same kind of thin, narrow boxes. And make sure the boxes have a handle of some kind so it's easy to grab. And if not, figure out a way to slip and slide it without making you crazy. Like I said, you can do a thin piece of plastic. I'm thinking of Exact Made's product where you basically cut a floor flexible mat and it will just slide back and forth and you can just sit something on it and slide it.
A couple of people said storage under the bed is not great because of dust and ventilation issues. But we are talking about, situations where people have to make use of
we're adapting
every speck of space they can.
Exactly. Because everything that's not tucked underneath something is going to be in your way, in your footpath. So we don't want it to be a problem. You can also make that a little bit easier if you put the bed on bed risers. I mean, bed risers were originally, they're 6 or 8 inches tall, and you can stick the feet of the bed into them and raise the bed 6 or 8 inches off the ground, which means that you can get slightly taller containers underneath it. It gives you a little more room to maneuver, and it makes it a little bit easier to get under there and pull stuff out. If it's not right down on the ground, it might be a little bit easier if you give yourself a little bit more room that way.
Yeah, and easier to keep it clean too.
Right. It's also a way, if you take it if it's already some off the ground and you add another 6 or 8 inches through the bed risers, then you might be able to get a container with a drawer underneath there. And particularly in dorms, I think this helps. If the beds are actually beds and not built into the wall cabinetry with a mattress on it, then you can often get the bed off the ground a little bit. And then you can put some plastic storage containers that are pull-out drawers under the bed. And it gives you sort of instant cabinet space under the bed. Don't forget about over-the-door racks, all those things that go over the top of the door and then hang down with the hook. That gives you some place to hang clothes, coats, purses, towels, for instance. It's a great way to add a place to have a towel if you don't have a towel rack, or you don't think you have enough towel racks in the bathroom, in the little bathroom. An over-the-door rack lets you hang some towels up that way. Also, over-the-door organizers, plastic organizers. They're usually made, they're originally designed for shoes, but they are super useful for all kinds of stuff. They make some that are side entry like this way, and they have sort of a flat, stiff bottom at each little cubby hole. And those are definitely designed for shoes to go in, but they could be used for anything. And they also make a plastic kind that has the pockets that face towards you, and they have a little pleat in them so the pocket can be pulled out and stuff can be put in there. And again, designed for shoes, but you can put cleaning products, you can put pantry items, you can put electronics in there, you can put craft supplies. So it creates this wall of hanging pockets that you can put in any room to accumulate any small amount of items. So that's a great one to add. And it's, it's not permanent. It can come and you can add it and then you can take it away again when you move out, and it won't be a problem. It won't be an issue in terms of messing with the wall, but it gives you instant hanging storage space that everybody can use for something.
Michelle said, please be careful with over the door hooks. They can chew your door frame. We have over the door hooks on practically every interior door because we're in a very small house. But what we do is cut little pieces of, the padded shelf liner that's designed for putting dishes and glassware on. It's foamy and sort of a honeycomb. I'm talking about just shelf, that spongy kind of shelf liner.
Okay.
You got little pieces of that to put under the hook. And if you're having an issue with it banging the door frame, you can just wrap the entire hook in it, because it's soft material. You can cut to size and wrap it around the hook.
Yes,
Wrap it around
exactly.
what fits over the top of the door.
Yeah, and some of these things have hooks that are fatter than others, so you really want to look for metal hooks that have the thinnest plate that
Very
goes across
slim
the top of the
profile.
door,
Yeah.
so that as you close the door, you're not scraping everything all the time. Some things, a standard fat plastic hook, then you can't close the door if there's not enough gap.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you will have to see which spaces have enough gap to allow for it. And you can buy metal versions that have a really thin plate at the top. Doesn't work, then screw in a hook.
Samudra asks, can you still close your doors? We can, because none of our doors are a very tight fit. There is one where the weight of stuff, we have to be a little careful not to load it down too much, because the door won't easily, it tends to swing open, and it's hard. It won't just lightly swing shut. So we have to be careful not to burden that door too much.
Right. And it's also true that the bend of the hook is often wider than your door.
Right.
And so what happens is it'll kind of do like this. It'll try to tilt on the thing. And so it's good to support either this end of the hook or this end of the hook with something cushy that helps it stay straight. So, go find your recycling, cut a piece of foam out, cut a piece of styrofoam, just something to prop it up so that it stays flat. Even with the weight, and then it won't fight as hard when you open and close the door. Okay. We also want to throw out, you want rollout racks or shelves that you can put under sinks. So they make these little, here's the frame, and you pull out the drawer, and those can sometimes be mounted into the shelf floor, the cabinet floor, or if it's heavy enough so that when you pull it out, the whole thing doesn't tilt over in front of you. You can use any kind of a rollout rack inside open cabinets. Underneath shelves, they make specific kinds that will fit around the piping, for instance, underneath a kitchen or a bathroom shelf. And you may need to find one that works with your measurements and fit something in there to give you some storage capacity under that crazy and useless sink that is your bathroom cabinet. Yeah, make sure you measure it all for sure. And also remember that all of the storage is a lot smaller than you think it is. And much of it, storage in the apartment, in the condo or the dorm, you think, oh, there's a cabinet, but it's a lot smaller than you think it is. And so a lot of it is custom fit by a builder to fit into the apartment size. And that builder has no idea how to make it truly useful. So it is the bane of every organizer's existence that a builder makes a plan to slap a cabinet or a drawer in somewhere, and they never think about how it's going to be used or what's going to happen with it. And so there's not usually much plan, which is why you see so many shows about, yeah, we went into the laundry room, we ripped all that out, and we put this stuff instead. Like, it's not usually well planned. It's just, there should be a cabinet in here, let me slap one up. And so you're going to have to adapt to whatever's there, and it's going to be smaller than you think it is. And you're going to have to work to make sure that it's useful for you. And so be prepared to take those measurements of those cabinets and know what you have, how tall your drawers are that you're going to put things in, and how much space the cabinet has, and particularly from front to back. A lot of times people get caught they buy storage containers they think are going to fit in the cabinet. And sure, it's wide enough and tall enough, but it's deeper than the actual cabinet is. There's a lot of cabinets that, particularly in apartments, they're 10 inches deep, 11 inches deep, 12 inches deep, if you're lucky. And they're barely deep enough to put an average storage container in. So it's important to know how deep the cabinets are that you're working with, how tall the drawers are that you're going to put your silverware in, or you're going to use in the bathroom, so that you know how teeny tiny that little space is, and you have to adapt to that teeny tiny space. Measure, measure, measure. That's the biggest thing I can say today. Some other adaptations to small spaces, a drop leaf or a folding table, any kind of table that folds down so that you can sort of get the table out of your way unless you need to fold up an end of it to eat, and then you can put it back down. Tiny nesting or stacking tables or seating cubes. They make a lot of little nesting tables now where you can keep pulling out a table, or they like the tables all fit together and they make one big cube, and then you start pulling them out and each one of them is a seating when you have friends over to sit down. It's quite amazing. So if you look for, if you Google for furniture for small spaces, you'll start seeing all these really clever, amazing engineered things that nest all like nesting dolls into themselves, and then they come out and become 5 little cubes to sit on. It's quite shocking. So it's also sort of like organizer porn to look at it all. So it'll be entertaining if you go looking for it as well to see all that kind of stuff. Okay. Who has questions?
A couple of comments. M mentioned when I was in college, 30 people or so shared 2 showers. That was kind of my situation, except I think it was 40 people and 4 showers. There was no way to leave our bathroom supplies in the bathroom. I had a sandbox bucket with everything I needed in it to carry to the bathroom. So why do we have so much clutter in our bathrooms now?
I do not know. You forget what you adapt to, right?
Forget what we could get away with once upon a time.
Right. Yeah. If you live in that kind of situation, particularly in a dorm, you're lucky if you have a bathroom in your dorm room, and otherwise it's a shared space and you're going to be walking and talking with all your bathroom stuff. So be prepared for it to be portable. That's for sure.
Phyllis had a great suggestion. A tension rod in the cabinet under the sink hangs all your spray cleaners above the cabinet bottom, which is nice that, you know,
that's
you can still have some space below.
Yeah.
And then let's see, we had a question from, Marnie on Facebook shared, my husband made me 2 nightstands by separating the 2 double drawers from a desk I wasn't using. I still need to paint it and redo the drawer pulls, but they were very narrow and we managed to get them in a room with king size bed. Oh,
hey, that's a good idea. That's really clever. Yeah, king size bed. Talk about taking up floor space, man. No small apartment is using a king size bed right now. So and cool.
Leanna shared made underbed storage with old dresser drawers with casters and a knob.
Ooh, there you go. The casters being the important part, so you can grab the knob and roll it out and roll it back without fighting. Yeah, because the thing about underbed storage is then you have to get on the floor. So when you get to the age of your life where getting on and off the floor is an issue, this becomes harder to manage. So casters will make your life easier. That's a good one.
Michelle said, my kitchen was designed by psychopaths in sales with no thought as to how it would be used. I'm convinced a lot of the most functional parts of homes are designed by people who don't live anywhere. They must be robots or something. M said, I saw a model home where there was no place for toilet paper. The toilet had a vase of flowers on the seat.
Oh, that's useful.
Our tiny little powder room has no place for a roll of toilet paper. So we have one of those freestanding things you can drop a few into and hang one on the top.
Yeah, that powder room is tiny. You're right about that. That is a little narrow space.
It is like a phone booth. Let's go ahead with the tittle now. Yeah.
Okay, so good things in small packages is this week's tittle. And the assignment is to address a small space organizing problem that you face. If you'll be launching a graduate into college or apartment living, or if you yourself plan to move to a smaller space, start now on your move plan. It's May. You have time to work it out. You have time to shop and to go looking for things. And they're going to start putting that stuff out. You know, every Target in the universe and the IKEA and all those places start putting out their dorm ready small space stuff. And they put it out over the summer because everybody goes off to college sometime in the early part of August mostly. And so it has to be out there for people to buy. So you're going to start seeing that stuff now. So go looking at it, go figuring out what's going to work for you. Now is the time to get the best options and beat everybody to the punch so that you aren't looking at an empty shelf when you go looking. Find out how much space you'll have available and start a checklist and a shopping list of items that the new space will need. If you've sent a child out into the world already, but have unfinished business in the bedroom they vacated, do some work this week on that room. Design storage or use the existing storage for left behind items that don't need to be immediately accessible. Especially true for, you know, the kids that went off to college and they're not thinking much about the contents of the room anymore. And they're not also thinking about the fact that, yeah, they're coming home for the summer, but they're going to have a million things to do over the summer. And this room that they've been living in for the last however many years, they're not going to ever sleep in it for a long period of time again. They're going to be back for the summer and then back to school, or they're off to their apartment and they're never coming back to stay in that room. And so they've left a bunch of stuff behind and they're not thinking about it. So starting to work on those left behind items would be great. If neither of those situations apply to you, then reflect on whether you have another small space challenge that needs your attention. What's the least adequate, most congested part of your home? Can you apply any small space strategies that we've suggested to make better use of that tiny closet or the minuscule powder room or the garage that has absolutely no room left in it? You want to see if you can improve a space that is small and choked and bothering you. Okay, so help a kid, deal with the kids' leftovers, or work on another small space in your house. Those are your assignments this week.
Let's talk about next week.
Okay.
Whether you're managing a long-term clutter issue or starting fresh in a new space, a critical part of designing your organized life is maintenance.
Ta-da, that's what we're talking about.
Well-designed habits can stop a tough situation from getting worse or can keep an organized space in tip-top shape. In our next webcast, we'll explore the hows and whys of powerful maintenance habits to stem clutter before it starts. Join us on May 10th, 2022 at the usual time, noon US Central Time, for routine maintenance. Keep your organizing machine running smoothly. One more comment I'd like to share. You know, we like to get a little philosophical here from time to time. And
the Clutter Fairy.
Samudra said, the question I ask myself all the time is, I used to get by without this. How?
We grow attached to our, comforts and adaptations, don't we? It's totally true.
But I think it's a great question to keep asking ourselves, because we get into the habit of having stuff, even when that stuff may not be supporting us or supporting us as well as something else could, or nothing else could.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes it's just a matter of, I have this in my house. Do I really is it really helping me solve a problem anymore? Or is it just here and I'm just used to it? Yeah, I think that's a good question, Samudra. Thank you. I appreciate that.
There was a question about what's going on with the couch behind you. And that is, it's meant to be stuck in a space that
doesn't fit.
It is too small. So one end is tipped up against the wall.
Jacked up on the wall, right?
Not terribly practical. but it worked for our purposes.
Well, and I even have a client who we moved them from a rent house to the townhouse that they bought. So then it was 3 stories and it had an elevator in it. And so the elevator was in the center and the stairwell wrapped around the elevator. And when they went to go take the refrigerator up, because the living quarters were on the 2nd floor, the refrigerator couldn't make the turn. It wouldn't fit in the elevator because it was too big for the elevator, and it wouldn't go up the stair and make the turn around the corner. And the moving guys tried for like an hour. They took the front of it off. They basically did everything they could to make this footprint of this refrigerator be smaller, and they could never get it around the corner. So they basically had to give that one away and buy a smaller footprint refrigerator just to get it on the 2nd floor.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, even in a townhouse, it's basically 3,000 square feet, you can still have small space problems. And they figured out later that if they'd used the original, if they'd somehow been able to get this thing onto the second floor, they wouldn't have been able to open the door and stand in front of it, because the kitchen was so narrow. They have an island, and they would have put it in there, and then they would have had to stand to the side of the fridge and open the door and look into it sideways in order to get into it. And so they would have suffered to get it up there, and then they would have had to take it right back out, because it would have made them crazy. So, you never know where you're going to have a small space problem.
Yes. All right. If you are watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. We have a lot of fun in our live events. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our viewers and listeners, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks everybody for coming, and thanks for being patient while we were out last week. I was off having so much fun. I'm going to show you my badge. I really was there. Here's me.
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Beautiful.
All my little labels. Oh, this is a green one. You can't see it. It says Conference Program Committee.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, sorry. The green screen's knocking it out. Isn't that funny? I had a great time, and thanks for the time off, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.